Levi Belfield, an awful murderous monster, wants to get married. Well, Alex says, hey, Mark, Millie Dowler should be here with us today. Her life was robbed by that very monster. On the EU, this from Alan, bring the EU trade war on. Brexit was meant to mean Brexit. For heaven's sakes, let's just do it. Well, the mood music is that our indomitable Foreign Secretary Liz Truss is seriously considering tearing up the Northern Ireland Protocol, and it can't come too soon. You know what they say about bullies, you've got to stand up to them. Coming up later in this show at 10 o'clock, my Mark Meets guest is the Channel 4 star of How Clean Is Your House, the legend that is Aggie McKenzie. She'll clean up the studio and, let's be honest, absolutely filthy, mainly because of Patrick Christie's, who's a very talented broadcaster, but, oh, what a mucky puppy. Also, in the news agenda, should women get period leave? Is it still worth going to university? It's £184 million too much in the Euro jackpot, and celeb cooking fails. And would you be willing to pay a shop a fine for returning unwanted items? Zara are charging just under £2 now for you to return one of their items to a collection point. We'll get to all of that very shortly, but it's time now for the big question, in which we tackle a major story of the day from multiple points of view. Tonight, the latest statistics show that suicide is the leading cause of death of men under the age of 44. In fact, men account for 3 out of 4 lives lost to suicide. Men have for a long time been blamed for so-called toxic masculinity, and even the male clothing item of the tie, something I'm wearing tonight, was last year called out as an outdated phallic symbol of male rule in the New Zealand Parliament. Whilst feminists have rightly battled for decades for equality and parity with men in the workplace and in society, has the pendulum swung too far in the other direction? Do we now blame men for all of the ills of the world? And are we at risk of demonising half of the human population? To debate this, I'm delighted to welcome feminist writer and broadcaster Kellie-Jay Keen. Live from the United States, we also have author and commentator Karen Straughan. And from Sydney, Australia, campaigner for men's rights, best-selling author and sex expert Bettina Arndt. And from my panel tonight, the ultimate man, the action man himself, proper real male role model, I should say, SAS hero Phil Campion. Phil, great to see you. Of course, you'll be reacting to all the stories we'll discuss on tonight's show. But let's talk about whether society is now too hard on men.
It can be in certain areas. And the suicide rates, which, you know, I've gone a long way to campaign with this. OK, the suicide rates are unacceptable. They really are. Mental health. Mental health is where a lot of this starts. And men's mental health is not where it should be in a lot of people. And it's affected by a number of things. And it's not taken serious enough, I don't think. You know, we had this thing on the last time I came on and we spoke about should we have a minister for men. Of course we should have a minister for men. We need a minister for men because we've got issues for men. I'm not down-treading female issues at all, in any way, shape or form. In fact, I support them, I respect them, and I go along with them. But when it comes to some of the issues that men have got, they need addressing. They really do. Yes, society is quite harsh.
Are there examples in our modern world of life being tougher for men than women, such as the men, for example, tend to be statistically at greater risk of violence than women tend to be? There are more men in prison, of course, longer prison sentences.
If you were stood in the pub, right?
Yeah.
If you were stood in the pub, especially in the pub where I come from, right, and it booted off, and somebody came in the pub, say, I don't know, somebody came in and attacked the pub, it would be the men that would be expected to step forward to deal with it. That would be the norm, wouldn't it? That would be the norm. That's how
that would be the protocol.
You know, that would be the protocol.
If there was a sinking ship, women and kids first, right?
Look, that's the whole thing, isn't it? You know, we're protectors and providers, and that's the way it is. And I think it gets lost sometimes. I'm not saying that women can't protect and provide as well, but just the way that the roles are sometimes teed up, of course it lends men to feel that, you know, sometimes there's pressure on them that might not be there if they were a woman.
Yeah.
And there are major issues because the statistics stack up against men. The suicide rates are insane.
Yeah.
The fact that you've got more chance under the age of 45 of committing suicide, taking your own life, as opposed to dying from anything else, that is an incredible statistic. That's insane.
Well, does society hate men now? Do we have
I don't think society hates men.
Men-phobic,
no, I don't
toxic
think
masculinity?
There'll be a few of them, man. There'll be a few of them, man. I'm sure there's a few of them stacking up to have a go at me now. You know what I mean? But
yeah.
Look,
you're lucky that they're down the line, otherwise you'd be in trouble.
That's it. Put me behind glass or something, and not because of COVID, to protect me from these people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, too right. Well, let's bring all of those people into that conversation. What a fantastic fantastic selection of experts we have. Kellie-Jay Keen, let me start with you. Great to have you back on the show. Do you think that we are now overly tough on men in modern society?
Well, no. I mean, 90% of all single-parent families are women, so we do get left holding the baby. So I think maybe there is a crisis in masculinity, as in some men need to just man up. And that doesn't mean that they can't suffer mental health. That just means you need to face your demons and sort it out. And I don't really see that that's society's issue. I mean, you know, there's lots of things that go on for women and men. Maybe women are better at dealing with it, but that's up to men to actually sort it out. You know, 90% of single parent families, like, women are doing the hard stuff, staying behind, looking after the kids, and men just seem to get off scot-free. So no, I don't think society's too tough.
However, Kellie-Jay Keen, the bottom line is that men do the manual labour. It's a majority of men that go to war or in the front line when it comes to civilian policing.
Yeah, that's right. And it's the minions, isn't it? It's not powerful men that go to war. It's not powerful men doing manual labour. It's powerful men making the decisions to make weaker men do the manual labour and go to war. I mean, if women were calling the wars and we were causing all the destruction in the world, I'd agree with you, but we're not. I don't think it's as simple as that. I think it's power structures that leave some men doing some really terrible jobs that require, like, fatal accidents.
Karen Straughan, you are a US-based author and commentator. It's time for men to man up. Suck it up.
I think that they've been sucking it up for quite many centuries now. Also, I'm Canadian.
Oh, forgive me. What an insult. I apologise.
No, I probably shouldn't admit to that. But no, I take issue with Kelly saying, well, 90% of single-parent families are led by mothers. Well, why is that? There's no mother on the planet who needs to demand sole custody of a child. And yet I know a ton of men who would love to share custody with their exes, would love to share custody, to be involved in their kids' lives on a 50-50 basis or a 60-40 basis, right? Not just 10% of them. And yet they're blocked by the courts, and they're blocked by the very women that she's asking you to sympathize with. So I'm just looking at it and I'm thinking, I know the heartbreak of, I know the heartbreak of losing a child, okay, because I have lost a stepson. And, and I see these articles, I think it was the Daily Mail several years ago, the agony of being a 50-50 mom, right?
Now, we've just back to me, please, Sebastian. We've just lost Karen. We'll come back to her very shortly. Canadian commentator. We're also going to get the thoughts of a campaigner for men's rights, the best-selling author and sex expert Bettina Arndt, who's poised to join us to contribute her thoughts about this. How do you see the direction of travel, Phil, in terms of how men are treated in society?
First of all, the girl there who's saying that weak men go to war, I don't see weak men kicking around on the battlefield, all right? I seriously don't. So that statement was absolutely ballooned out of good.
Well, the minions.
Powerful men make the decisions.
How do you feel about...
Weak men go to war, but I would argue that and sometimes say that stupid men make the decisions and brave men sort it out. All right, so she's completely topsy-turvy on that.
What do you think? She's part of the problem. Minions. She said minions.
Yeah, I mean, minions. You are minions. Go away, minions. She is part of the problem there. What's an absolute... Where did you find her? Where did you find her?
The internet.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know what I mean? Go to scuttle off, love. Do you know what I mean? Unbelievable thing to say. And if I spoke to her like that, it would be demeaning. Now, I wouldn't speak to her like that. I'm more respectful of her. Do you know what I mean? But that's the attitude that she's portraying towards me, a fighting man, a soldier who served my country. You're a minion. You're a weak man. Really? Really? Unbelievable. What a shocking thing to say.
And of course, it was men who physically powered the Industrial Revolution, who built the roads, who dug the sewers, the underground tunnels,
absolutely.
Went to war.
Even if they argue, well, we didn't get the chance to do that. You weren't rushing down the road to do it, were you? That's another fact as well, isn't it? The single-parent argument, it doesn't stack up. I know loads of people that would love to have custody of their kids. I'd love to be left holding the baby. Again, it's very difficult for some men, isn't it?
Yeah, well, too right. I'm delighted to say now that we've got a line to Bettina Arndt, who is based in Sydney, Australia, a campaigner for men's rights, best-selling author, America's first, sorry, not America's, well, my countries are all over the place today, Australia's first ever sex expert. Bettina Arndt, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark.
Do you think that we are too hard on men these days?
Oh, absolutely. I think male bashing has become a national sport in all our countries, and we constantly demonise and denigrate men in every way possible. We start off teaching little boys in schools to be ashamed of being males. We go through to universities, we teach university students that if two kids have a drunken hookup, he's always responsible and he's a rapist. I mean, it just goes on and on and on, with women's needs and women's wants promoted at the ahead of men's needs.
And how do you see a solution for this, Bettina? Well, what do you think is going to need to happen for men to be happier and better protected?
Oh, we have to do something about the control of feminists over our key organisations. I mean, if you look at, I've been writing recently about suicide. We have similar figures in Australia. 7 out of 9 people who kill themselves every day in Australia are male. And yet we have a gender-neutral suicide policy, which is just madness. 4 of the 5 recipients of suicide prevention programs are women. And at the heart of that is this key issue of what happens in family breakup. Relationship breakup is the #1 cause of suicide in Australia, and feminists just won't let us go there because our whole family law system has been weaponised against men. Women can use false allegations of violence to get the man removed from the home, alienate him from the children, gain enormous strategic advantage in family court battles. And the suicide, so the health bureaucrats running our policies absolutely don't want this to be on the public agenda, don't want this to be discussed. So they refuse to acknowledge we have such a big male problem. And it applies in policy after policy area. The whole public narrative is controlled by a tiny, noisy, extremist group, and the majority of men and women don't want men treated like that way. They want fair treatment for men and women.
Kellie-Jay, the high suicide rate among men would suggest we're not getting it right in relation to men in society.
Well, that's true. I just want to make a couple of corrections. Number one, I'm not a feminist. And number two, I don't think men that go on the front line and go into battle are weak. That is not what I said. But I don't think it's I don't think it would be the decision for any man to go and fight for their country when their country are making decisions that aren't really in the best interests of their nation. And I think that's why many men have gone to war in the past. My grandfather also served as a soldier, and so I'm certainly not saying that he was a weak man. He also stood by his duty, and he was a very valiant man in many aspects of his life, including being a manual sheepskin worker and a shepherd. So let me just correct that there and then. When it comes to the suicide rate of men, I think Jordan Peterson has got the right message, where you actually sort out your own life, you actually take responsibility, you are dutiful, you owe your wife, your children, your family, your loyalty and your trust, and you get that in return. The point about the single parent families is not just that women stay behind, it's that maybe both people don't put enough effort in, but often it is men that leave. And I don't think that too many women actually leave a happy marriage or a situation where their children become fatherless in the way that many men do. And I'm also not going to talk about the family courts. I think the family courts are absolutely dreadful for most families. I don't think many children get the right outcome from family courts. I know women in situations of terrible abuse that have to give custody to men, and I know men that are really decent fathers that don't get to see their children. But that is not the broadest picture. And in my own life, anecdotally, which I know doesn't equate to data, but in my own life, most of the women I know who are having single parent families are completely abandoned by the fathers. So that might be anecdotal, but I just think it is worth saying. When it comes to suicide, I really think society needs to address what the hell is happening to men, that they feel that that is the only solution to whatever it is they're facing. I don't know if circle time and mental health and all that stuff is necessarily good for anyone. I think sometimes you just have to get on with it and be a little bit more stoic.
I stand corrected, Kellie-Jay, in relation to the fact that you're not a feminist. I agree with you vehemently on your position regarding trans rights. For more information about what you do, people can go to Standing for XX, which is your Twitter handle, or your website, Adult Human Female Store. Let's just finish up, Karen Straughan, if I can, with a point made by Bettina Arndt. Bettina Arndt suggested that the media have a role in this male bashing. What's your view, Karen?
Well, I know a researcher named Paul Nathanson who he was approached about 15, 20 years ago now by a fellow sociologist who had said that, you know, we've done a content analysis of commercials on TV, and we found that in every situation where you're putting a man and a woman in competition, or even a boy and a girl in competition with each other, to sell a product, the girl or the woman always comes out on top. So who's smarter, who's more responsible, who's whatever. And Paul said, wait a minute, nothing in sociology is ever 100%. And what he did was he sat down, and he's a gay man, so he sat down with his partner for about 10 years and carefully watched TV commercials. And he said he found a total of three, where a man and a woman, or a male, a boy and a girl were in competition, where the male came out on top, was portrayed as smarter, more competent, whatever. And so he wrote a series of books, and you can just look it up with a co-author named Catherine Young, Paul Nathanson, Catherine Young, the Misandry series. Go read it. Look at what the media has been doing for the last 20, 30 years, and look at the messaging that we're sending boys. And if you want men to act like men, you actually need to boost them a little, because boosting a man a little bit in terms of his confidence ups his testosterone level, and it starts a positive feedback loop of him actually feeling energetic and competent and confident and capable and all of that stuff. And once you grind him down into the dirt, it's really, really difficult for him to climb out of that. So,
Karen, I've been watching your videos with great interest. How can viewers find out more about what you do?
Oh, just look me up on YouTube. I'm not on Twitter anymore, at least. Well, maybe I'll be back on when Elon Musk takes it over. But I called the wrong male feminist a bad name, so they booted me off for life.
Well, do check Karen out online. Karen Straughan, Straughan. Final word to Bettina Arndt. She's on Twitter at the Bettina Arndt. Her hashtag is men2. What are your final thoughts on this, Bettina?
Look, I think we've got a terrible problem for men in our society. And the great pity is most women don't want men treated like this. Mothers of sons, most women have men in their lives that they care about and love, and they don't like them seeing them constantly denigrated. I have women coming to me every week we have a big group of volunteers working to try to change things in Australia. We have men and women and lawyers working to protect men under attack in our universities by the campus kangaroo courts. We've got a bit of a movement happening in Australia to try to counter the current narrative and stand up for men. But we need to really encourage more people, the silent majority, to give voice and to challenge the way men are being presented in our society.
Well, sincere thanks to all three of you, in fact, all four of you. Let's not forget the man, shall we? That seems to be part of the problem. Phil Campion, SAS hero, Kellie-Jay Keen, Writer and broadcaster Karen Straughan and Bettina Arndt. Bettina, thanks for getting up so early. I realise it's very early in Sydney, Australia. Do join us again and have a great bike ride once you get out into the fresh air. What a lovely city you're living in. Lots more to come. My Mark Meets guest at 10 o'clock is the Queen of Clean. It is Aggie McKenzie from How Clean Is Your House on Channel 4. We've now got the democratic result of our poll. Are men being particularly treated badly in modern society? And 71.3% say yes and 28.7% say no. A majority believe that we are now too hard on men in modern society. Lots more to come. Next up in the news agenda with my panel, should women, talk about women now, the other half of the human race, should women have period holidays? Should they get time off if they're struggling with period pains? Also, celeb cooking fails. What's the point in going to university? Lotto wins. And once again, my Mark Meets guest, the star of How Clean Is Your House, Aggie McKenzie, live in the studio at 10. See you shortly.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
On radio, they call it the drive time slot, 4 p.m. until 6 p.m. as listeners head home. It's that part of the schedule when the dust of the day's events begin to clarify, and we try to make sense of it for you. Brazier is drive time for radio and TV. It's fast, it's punchy, it's opinionated, there's a Brazier angle and a little bit of levity.
That's the question. That's two questions, actually.
That's Brazier, Monday to Thursday, 4 till 6 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates and strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Is society too hard on men? Elizabeth says, Dear Mark, women are left holding the baby because feminists destroyed the family as the foundation of civilization. They did this chiefly by removing the stigma from unmarried motherhood. The stigma was there for a reason, cruel though it seemed. I'll get to more of your emails about that. How about this? Let's hear from a bloke, shall we? Derek says, Dear Mark, people can say what they like, but that hated national service was great at cutting the apron strings and allowing men to mature. Derek, thank you so much. A very mature email from your good self. Keep them coming. But let's get to our news agenda with several members of my panel. Women in Spain are being offered menstrual leave every month. The Spanish government is due to pass new health measures next week. But what about here in the UK? Well, a recent report recommended amending the Equality Act 2010 to ensure menopausal women are protected from discrimination and bullying at work. But what do we all think about this? Should women be given a period at time off from work? Delighted, obviously, to get the views of Mo Lovett, writer and broadcaster. And also sticking around for this conversation is the campaigner and presenter and commentator, Kellie-Jay Keen. Mo Lovett, let me start with you. Should a woman be given period time off from work?
Two things I'm really uncomfortable about, Mark. When I first went for my first ever job interview, I was asked if I had a boyfriend, if I was planning on getting married, and if I was planning to have a baby. That was in 1987. There was a suggestion that as a female worker, I was entitled to divulge that kind of personal information, specifically because I was a woman and I would have to have maternity leave, right? So I'm really uncomfortable about this. One, that if I've got a pain, and let's not underestimate how bad period pains can be. They can be, and I have had to take, sort of time off because of cramps and all the rest of it. But I don't need to tell my boss that. I mean, I'm now saying it on national TV, but yeah, my boss doesn't need to know why I'm too ill to come into work. He or she just needs to know that I can't fulfil my function, and that's it. I don't want to have to start divulging all sorts of, personal information about my health.
What about 3 or 4 days guaranteed for every woman, 3 days period time, working from home or even not working at all? Just put it in statute.
So the other point is that feminists fought to have equality in the workplace, right? That their biology wasn't a barrier to them being able to do a job as good as any man. And this seems to be a bit biological determinist, because some women don't have bad periods, right? Some women do, and they just cope with them. Men have other problems, they don't. So I think it's a biological determinism thing. I think it's taken feminism back rather than forward, and I don't think it's your boss's business what's going on in your reproductive system, quite frankly. I think, there needs to be trust between employee and employee there. If you're too sick to go into work, that should be the end of it.
Kellie-Jay Keen, is the issue that society is uncomfortable talking about women's time of the month?
Well, it might be, but I'm quite happy about that, to be honest. I don't want to talk about it. I don't really need numerous conversations about it. I don't want to talk to my boss about it. Similarly, I'm sure menopausal women don't want to talk about it. I mean, I totally agree that we should be able to, as mature adults, to say when we can't come in without having to explain in graphic detail why that might be. It just seems a peculiar idea. And also this idea that if we then say that periods are just this terrible, terrible thing for every single woman, which they're not, I don't know what message that delivers to our kids, that actually it should be taboo. I mean, I think bodily functions should be relatively taboo, to be honest. I don't want to hear about anybody's bodily functions.
No, but men don't.
Yeah,
men don't.
No, it's not good.
No, Kellie-Jay, I don't want to interrupt you and be a dominating man, but men don't suffer from period pains. They don't go through the menopause. Don't you think there should be more provision for women whose bodies are a much more sophisticated and complex chemical organism? I mean, a female body is built and designed to incubate a baby. Don't you think it's different rules for women, particularly given that period pain is not an illness?
Well, of course, it's different rules for women because we do have period pains. I just don't necessarily think that needs legislation. It just needs decent working practices and relationships with your employer. It doesn't seem, it just doesn't make any sense that there's legislation that would say women could have 3 days off a month. Well, whoopee. I'd rather have better provisions for women to have paid leave when they have to take time off for their children being ill, and some decent employment rights generally for everybody in the UK, not just women and periods.
Kellie-Jay, we've got a double helping. Will you come and see us in the studio and be a panellist soon?
Send a car, anytime.
Definitely, we'd love to have you back. It's been too long. There you go, Kellie-Jay Keen and Mo Lovett, who returns in the next hour to react to our big stories of the day. Celeb cooking fails. What's the point in going to university? Big lotto wins. Is it too much money now? And next at 10 o'clock, I meet the Queen of Clean herself, Channel 4's Aggie McKenzie. Don't go anywhere.